VO in Stereo is sponsored by Bodalgo, international voice acting platform. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to VO in Stereo. I'm your host, Jared Breschers. Along with me every time, and by my side, Stephen Coghill. Today, that got another big one. Got another good guest. Good, great, whatever. He's a man with over 20 years in the industry. He has worked with some of the biggest clients, bar none, in the world. He's a vocal coach, a demo producer, and what's that? He also has 38 awards. Please help me welcome J. Michael Collins.
Woo! Who are you calling big, man? Come on.
I mean, we're both big. We're both
a
big.
Man of extraordinary magnitude.
I'm fluffy.
I'm like a poodle. I jump out of the shower, I just instantaneously dry. It sucks.
All lobster weight.
Mine's
Weighs
more
a little
like
differently on the scales than
right.
Never mind.
Well, thank you so much for carving out some time for us, man.
You
I really
bet, man.
appreciate you being here. Always kick it over to Steven. Steven's going to start us off with a couple questions, and we're just going to roll from there. So here we go.
I like how all the awards are that Jared was just talking about are all lined up in the back.
It's subtle, right?
They're holding
like
up the
Lego
whole
bricks.
Everything. Yeah.
I've had some people ask if they're beer taps.
Like, no,
That's
we
my
have
beer
Tom
bottle
build little
collection.
structures out of them. That's hilarious. Well, they look good.
Well, thank you.
Well, welcome. Thanks,
man.
Thanks for being here. We always start out with the same silly question, which is a good place to start, which is, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Washington, D.C. Was born at Sibley Hospital, about a block from the White House, and I bounced around a lot as a kid, but D.C. is always where I've considered home.
Nice. And did you have siblings growing up?
Well, I still have them, but yeah.
You never know. You might have done something with them.
Yeah. Well, there have been times I've been tempted, but That got a younger sister and a younger brother.
And you still talk to them?
I do. They're good folks. He's a on camera actor, kind of background actor, and she is actually a emergency room doctor in Sydney, Australia.
All right.
Wow.
See, so that was going to be my next question: is were they creative, and were you creative growing up?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was always two track, which was more business. I used to sell baseball cards. I used to be, when I was a kid, I used to collect, but then actually when I was 9 years old, I had my first table as a dealer at a card show. And my father drove me out there, but I set everything up. It was part of my collection, stuff I had bought and was going to resell. And he's like, oh my God, my 9-year-old kid made $300 in a weekend. And at 9 years old back in the 80s, I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool. So I learned to like money really early, and business was always kind of one of the tracks. And the other ones, but believe it or not, I was actually an athlete when I was a kid. I played baseball, I played football, I played basketball. It was only in my 20s when voiceover started to take over that obesity set in. But back then, the sedentary lifestyle of a man behind the mic. No, so yeah, I mean, creative. Yeah, I was that kid who had the tape recorder, and my buddy, when I would do radio show, that we would make up on the tape recorder. And I think when I was in my what do they call it, preteen years, that I was I wanted to be a shock jock. I thought I was going to be Howard Stern, and that was kind of the radio thing was really appealing. And it's interesting because that's kind of how I wound up segueing into voiceover over time. But in my mind at that time, it was like, okay, radio. But my sister was actually the one I would always describe as being more creative minded. She was the artist. She was the one who would paint, and and my brother actually was the one who was really obsessed with acting from a young age. I think I expected more to go to law school and go down the corporate road, and this kind of thing just took over at some point.
Interesting.
I think you've made good choices.
In retrospect, yeah, at the time that I passed up law school for this, my family looked at me like I had, monkeys crawling out of my ears. But it's hindsight, right?
Monkeys in the barrel.
So when is the world going to hear your those beautiful tapes you recorded so long ago?
Oh, I think they've long ago been burned. Or if I ever run for office when the opposition finds them, that's the only time they're coming out.
Yeah, pretty much.
We got guys to make that kind of thing disappear. When we say we're a tight-knit industry, that's exactly what we mean.
Ammunition. I got you.
Oh, Lord of mercy. That's
so when did you leave DC? Did you go to high school and stuff in DC?
Yeah, so we bounced around a lot. So I was in DC as a baby, basically. Then we moved to Paris, France for a couple of years. We came back to the Boston area, Cohasset, Massachusetts, where I did kindergarten, first grade, second grade. We moved back to then we were on to the New York area, New Providence, New Jersey, and that was third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, and some of sixth grade. Then we went back to the DC area, and that was through the freshman year of high school. And then we actually wound up in Dallas. My father was in public relations, and he was somebody who was almost like an athlete, kind of jumps from team to team every few years as a free agent. He was a fixer. He would go in and fix a company's problem, and he was with some pretty big companies over the years. But every 3 or 4 years, he'd go in and he'd do his job, and it'd be done. And then they'd be on to the next contract, on to the next position somewhere else. And so every few years, we were going somewhere else. So we wound up in Dallas. I went to high school in Dallas, went to college in Denton and University of North Texas. And then as soon as I graduated, I wound up coming back to the D.C. area. And that's where I started. Well, actually, my voiceover career started when I was younger in Texas. But that's where I really kind of came into full-on voiceover as full-time, and then, as a lot of people know, we wound up finding ourselves in Luxembourg more and more full-time starting about 15 years ago, and that's where I've been for the last decade and a half at this point. Which is magical and really cool. I mean, when the world is normal, I'm still usually like 2 weeks out of the month in DC, New York, or LA. But since the pandemic started, I've been back actually over to Dallas a couple of times in the spring, but that's been it for the last year and a half.
Oh, my dear God. Like, your social media gave me a reason to stunt on my mother-in-law. It was fantastic. When you showed the picture of traveling with Hugh Jackman, that's her favorite person.
Oh, that was fun. That was really cool. I got a cool story with that too, because
please do.
So this is Air France. Believe it or not, I was going for a football game. I was going for the AFC Championship game, nice. The Patriots and the Jaguars a few years ago. So I get into the lounge, and yes, I'm flying first class. And I get into the lounge,
really?
and there's Jackman and what's the guy? What is this? James Marsden, I think, is the other guy that was with him, and Jackman's wife. And they're at another table. They're chilling. I had no idea they were on my flight, right? So on Air France, what they do is they come and they escort you to the plane if you're flying first class. So the person who was my agent comes and gets me, and she walks me down. Actually, they put you in a car and they drive you to the airplane, and they take you up an elevator and just put you on the jet bridge. And so I go on first, and on Air France and first, there are only 4 seats. It's one row. They've all got a little curtain that actually wraps around them, so you get total privacy. They're pretty cool. But they don't have that at takeoff because it's got to be open for safety. So I sit down, and the plane's empty. I'm thinking, man, maybe I got the whole cabin to myself today, right? And all of a sudden, here comes Hugh Jackman, James Marsden, and his wife. And I shit you not. Can I say that on
Absolutely
this
can. He shits you not.
I shit you not that the first thing it blew my mind. Hugh Jackman walks on the plane, and the first thing out of his mouth is he turns to James Marsden and he goes, "Well, hell, I prefer the X-Jet." Seriously. And for like 8 hours to New York, they sat there talking about movies. And I wound up getting to chat with you for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. We got our selfie together, and cool guy, really nice guy.
That's awesome.
But I prefer the X-Jet. I'm like, really? They're fanboys. It was hilarious. You would think that they'd be kind of distant and wouldn't want to talk about that, right? But they're fanboys.
That's awesome. I prefer the X-Jet. I do too. Let's get some of those.
Right?
I need some superpowers. Ooh, that's a good question. What would be your superpower if you had one to pick?
If I had one to pick?
You could pick one superpower.
Ooh. That's tough.
It is.
I'm
To
gonna go,
control all lobsters.
right. I'm gonna go for immortality,
Ooh, that's pretty awesome.
and hopefully I don't age in the process.
Oh, you're too pretty to
Ageless
age.
immortality. Yes, I know.
Ageless immortality.
You have to be specific.
Behold my chins.
That is awesome.
So did you go to like I know you said your dad was in public relations?
Mhm.
And so you travel around. Do you think that's part of why you live not here? You live in Germany? Is that why?
Yeah, Luxembourg. Yeah, and it's I think that I mean my wife and I are both dual citizens. By birthright, I've got a French passport in addition to my U.S. passport, and she's got a Dutch passport. So we are, even with the pandemic, we've still been able to kind of come and go as we please, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, I think I've always been somebody who is adaptable. And for me, until COVID started, the globe has always just felt like a really small place. You get on a plane, you go, and everywhere when you've just kind of been raised that way and you're moving around all the time, everywhere's kind of the same in its own way. They've all got their own. Every city, every region's got its own special stuff. But people are people, and and the world is kind of. It's at the end of the day, people want the same things. People like the same things. People like good food. People like friends. People like family. People are people, and so I've never felt weird or out of place somewhere foreign or somewhere different. I think actually probably the biggest culture shock I've ever had was moving from Washington D.C. to Dallas when I was a teenager, which was just from the Northeast, which was a little bit more rigid and a little bit more keep to yourself, a little bit more private. To howdy y'all, and I mean it was Texas back then. It's not today. It kills me going back to Dallas now. It's like you wouldn't recognize it. It could be a suburb of Boston. It's so cosmopolitan, but back then it was cowboy hats, shit kickers and vatos, and that's all it was. It's a bit of a different world. So that was culture shock. But yeah, I mean, I think it's you get used to different things, and we have an adventurous spirit. My wife's like that too, Anna's like that too. That we want to go see things, we like to do stuff, and we like to experience new things. And have an open mind, as people see from the food pictures that I post.
While I've got you here, let me call you out on a little something. I can hang with you on the dad game, but you're killing me on the husband game. You're making me look real bad. So if you could just ease up on that a little bit, I'd appreciate it.
Well, look, if you looked like this, you'd have to make the extra effort too. Come on, man.
I did the same thing. All I did was throw a throw rug over my face.
Yeah, but I like the throw rug's not a bad idea. I like that. We might have to talk about that.
Oh, that would be sweet. You'd do like a little beard, bald men and beard.
That's right.
That's awesome. Speaking of traveling everywhere, and I usually ask this question of what the comfort food, but I think I know what your comfort food is. So, like, what's something that you can get anywhere that just reminds you, like, that just evens you out, like a drink, a beverage, a food, just something that's a little taste of home or just reassures you? Like,
I mean, it's because people see all the fancy stuff that I post, but truth be told, I mean, outside of lobster, all jokes aside, there are two things that you get me every time: some good old-fashioned cheese fries, and a chicken fried steak.
Oh, we could get poutine and chicken fried chicken.
There you go.
Sawmill gravy. There's a reason I'm on my 74th trimester.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, same here.
They're twins.
I saw my cardiologist the other day. He just went.
Mm-hmm.
It's like your heart looks good. He said for now.
You know what? I always hated coming out of the doctor's office here the last couple of years because it's always the same thing. Like, you're fine. They always look at you shocked. So you're okay. So do they know you're fat? Yeah, they know I'm fat. I'm okay. Jesus. But thanks for bringing that up again. I'm in shape.
My poor GP, every time I go see him, he's just sitting there like, you're not going to change, are you? No, I'm not. I like to live.
Live fast and leave
I may not live long, but I like to live.
It's just like that quote, only some people live every day and blah, blah, blah. It's like, jump off the cliff.
Right, go
his
for
superpower was he wanted to live forever.
Immortality, so it doesn't matter.
As the young people say, YOLO.
YOLO. I believe that's a little sus.
Hey.
Is it a little sus? All
Well,
right. I'm kind of chuggy like that. What's the
I think
new
I'm
word that they say?
bougie. I'm not sure
I
what
don't
the
know.
words
Just
are
don't
now.
go down.
Yes, I'm very hip. I have a hip. My hip hurts. My
can't.
teeth.
Get off my lawn.
My mom says I'm cool. That's it.
Your
I'm
mom-
coming out of the booth, you bastard.
Your mom says I'm cool too. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. Hey, somebody's got to do it. At least I know
Right.
the person. It's not like when we were younger. Milkman, oh, where art thou?
All right, so to get this interview back on track, I know we just went off the rails a little bit, but so you were going around, you were going to different schools. Did you ever involve yourself in any kind of drama or anything like that in school?
Believe it or not, no. I was even for the first 7 or 8 years of my voiceover career, I was just Big Voice Bob. I talked like this and I printed money and it was amazing. And then all of a sudden, maybe 15, 16 years ago, you had to become an actor. And it was like, huh? But I'm blessed that I've always been a little bit of an autodidact, and I've been able to just kind of self-taught on a lot of this stuff. You know, I'm kind of the ultimate do as I say, not as I do, because I've never really had an hour coaching in my life. I think my parents put me in front of the TV too much when I was a kid, and I just sort of figured out what this stuff was supposed to sound like. But the acting part, that's a different animal, and it's the industry's changed a lot in that way. That you can't just be a set of pipes anymore. You've got to actually be able to connect with copy and make people believe you. And I'm lucky that I think I was able to figure out that trend early on, because a lot of people who come from the broadcast background can struggle with that. It's not the easiest transition to make.
Isn't that funny though? That as kids, growing up listening to the radio and listen to those big DJs, all
That's
those
right.
big voices, and then you sit there and emulate it in all your life, and you're like, I just can't wait till I get to the mic and do it. And then they're like, yeah, we're not doing that
No.
anymore. It's all conversational.
Right.
So yeah, drop.
I'm hanging on to big ironic announcer guy. That guy,
I'm
he
like,
still gets
listen,
booked.
I've
I want
been
that guy. I like that
practicing
guy.
this my
Hey, the
whole
Sasquatch.
life, and I want to do
Yeah.
it now. I don't know.
It's
It
tough.
was funny. We had a
It
guy
is.
in here. Just had a guy in here running him through to see if he's, got the chops or whatever. And he's like, "So, do you ever hear any of your friends?" I was like, "All the damn time.
Right.
Sometimes more than I would hope, but all
Right.
the damn time." So, but it's really cool to be able to. The more you grow in it, you pick. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty neat.
That's cool. People, and then you hear yourself from time to time. I was always one of my favorites was I was at WovoCon like 5-6 years ago, one of the first ones, and walk out to get into a cab to go to dinner, and there's this McDonald's commercial playing on the radio. I'm like, well, that's familiar. It was me and Christina Malizia. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's our spot. It's like, that's cool. And it's I mean, comes a point where it's like, it just becomes old hat, I guess, if you hear it a lot, but every now and then it catches you unexpectedly. And it's like, oh yeah, that's what I do. That's cool.
We're still waiting for the old hat to arrive, aren't we, Jared? Yeah, the hat hasn't even arrived yet.
Yeah.
So you went. So you didn't really get involved in that. So you fell into voiceover work somehow. How did you?
So I think a lot of people have heard this story, but the kind of the Cliff's Notes version is when I was 15, by sheer nepotism, I got an internship on a radio station in Dallas, Texas called KGBS AM 1190, which was business Bloomberg Information Radio Business News Talk. And I was interning with a guy named Dan Foster. It was a show called Texas Money in the Afternoons. Basically, just a lot of reading the copy off of the Bloomberg wire terminal that they had in there, and then a few phone interviews and things like that, a couple call-ins, but not a whole lot of stuff. It was a lot of chop and not a whole lot of just live time on air, and so I watched what he did, and he let me do 1 or 2 little on-air segments because my voice had changed when I was like 13, so I already sounded like I do now when I was a kid, which was kind of weird in high school. But
Jay won't be coming to school today.
I did that all the time. Not for me, for the girls. You want to talk about a great way to get a date? Yes. I'm sorry, Alicia can't make it to school today. This is Mr. Jackson. I'm sure you understand. We can make that an excused absence, right? Yes,
No, Miss
absolutely,
Jackson, we're
no problem.
sorry.
That's right.
Because he's for real.
Bueller.
So in any case, so I get this internship, and Never expected it to turn into anything much other than just what it was supposed to be. But all of a sudden, the owner of the station, who was the family friend that got me this internship, calls me in one day, and he goes, "Yeah, it was Mike. We went by Mike. Is Mike? I'm going to give you a break." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, as you know, because there were rumblings that they were going to sell the station." He said, "So as you know, we sold the station, and a year after all the FCC approval and stuff comes in, it's going to be Christian rock." And he said, "So Dan Foster is the guy who had the show. He just came in here and quit. He wants to go back into the oil business because he knows he's not going to have a job in a year." And he said, "So guess what? The show's yours for the next year. You can run it into the ground or not." He said, "But he said it doesn't matter because I've already made my money." And he's like, "But if you keep the ratings up, maybe, I know you want to have a career in radio. Maybe you can start now." And I'm like, being a cocky little 15-year-old kid, I'm like, "All right, let's do it. Drive time radio. Why not? Business news talk." So I just kind of bullshit my way through it for the better part of a year, got the information off the wire. I was a precocious little kid, so I had some idea what I was talking about at that point, but was, we'll fake it till you make it in there. I interviewed Mike Judge, who was the creator of Beavis and Butthead, over the phone. They had no idea how old I was. I interviewed Dick Cheney when he was the CEO of Halliburton, and just stuff like that. A little 10-minute interview with some prepared questions that, and we had the internet back then. It was just starting, but I went, figured out a few different things. And it worked. I mean, we kept the ratings kind of where they were, which were never huge, but they were decent. What happened though was during that time, he wasn't paying me anything to do the show, but it was like paying me like $300 a month. It was ridiculous. That's why he wanted to keep me, but nothing to do with talent. But in any case, I started getting hired by station sponsors to do spots. And that actually was paying decent money. Sometimes it was $150, but sometimes it was $750. Okay. And for a 15-year-old kid, I'm like, man, now I'm not just taking the girls to, I'm taking them to nice restaurants. Now this is like, we're not just going to putt. This is some good stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. And I never really, I knew what voiceover was, but I'd never really thought of it as something that could be a better career track than radio. Which was still something I was very interested in. And all of a sudden, though, I'm booking these jobs. And I'm like, okay, so when that went away, I just continued to work with some of those clients. Got a small agency to rep me there and got a little bit of work through them. And then went on to do another, actually did a talk show later on when I was in college on Sporting News Radio KDSX up in Denton for NFL football talk. And that was cool. It was just an hour show. But again, was continuing to do voiceover work. And by the time I graduated, I'm making a living. I wasn't making a big living, but I was making a modest but legitimate living doing voiceover. And so I had the chance to go to law school, and I'm making, like $35,000 a year doing VO, or I can go to law school and get into debt and come out and become a prosecutor and make $35,000 a year or less, and I'm thinking, so I'm going to defer that for a year and see how this goes. And my family thought I was nuts, but just started to grow a little bit and moved back to DC afterwards and just started to go from there, man. And it's, I think that the biggest thing, if I had to do it over again, was kind of realizing now at this point in hindsight that if I had known what I know today about being able to hustle, work on your own, being able to fit into the DIY world that we all live in now, earlier on, I'd probably be retired right now. If there were coaches, if there were, demo producers, if there were webinars and conferences and all that stuff back then, which there really wasn't. Okay. Unless you were in LA, there might've been a couple, but there really wasn't much of any of that kind of stuff. I'd be done. I'd be gone. I'd be out by now. And I spent 10 years as just old school agency representative. I worked 5 or 10 hours a week, would go into audition live in most cases, would book a couple of jobs a week, and it made a decent little living, and paid for a nice apartment and a house on a golf course, and wasn't making a fortune, but I was a single guy, and it was fantastic. But
I don't know where you come from, but if you got a golf course in your backyard,
right,
you've made it.
But I didn't realize how much more it could be, and how much more it could be if you really got into it on your own and worked the hours. And there are times I look back sort of enviously at the idea of working 5 or 10 hours a week and having a full-time living. But what you can do in this business, if you're putting in 40, 50, 60, 120 hours, now not that much a week, it's a whole different world now. And that's what's really cool about where the industry is today.
I like that. I've got a question. It's not the easiest question in the world. Everybody gets on these interviews and they always want to shoot out rainbows and sparkles and all that crap. I don't want that kind of story. I would like to know a moment in your life that was trying and hard that took the wind out of your sails. Because when you get to the point where you're at, a lot of people look up to you and they're like, "Oh, it's untouchable. He can't be human." BS. I
Well,
talk
I
to
get to
you,
that point, I'll let you know. But
right?
it's yeah, I think from a professional standpoint, there was a job I had maybe 10 years ago. I got hired to do a big announcer read for jumbotrons in NHL arenas, and I got into the session, and I couldn't give them what they wanted. And I'd been 15 years professional at that point, was making a good living. And we're sitting there on take 20, take 25, and I could hear them. This was just an audio session, but I could just hear him in the background going, "Oh, he sucks. He sucks. Why can't he get there? Why isn't he deep enough? Why can't he go where he needs to go?" And I lost the job. I never got to where they needed to get to. Even at that point, 15 years in, making pretty good money. I had a couple weeks there where I was like, okay, all right. Shakes your confidence a little bit when something like that happens. And unfortunately, it's not something that happens a lot. But that one stands out. Even 10 years later, that one stands out as being a little bit like, okay, I'm not Superman. All right. So
imagine.
I think you need to be humbled from time to time in order to stay down to earth and to stay real to some degree. I mean, a lot of us have been blessed with a lot of success in this business, and we've been, lucky to, I think for me, it's a lot of good timing, being in the right place at the right time, in many cases. But it's important, I think, to take stock and realize that, I wake up, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I wake up every day and I pinch myself. I still wake up every day just wondering when it's going to come to an end, when the ride's going to be over. And it's part of the reason I think that my ass stays on fire permanently. That and poor hygiene, but generally speaking, but
They make powders for that.
I don't know, man. I just ain't seen them yet. But it's
creams.
she don't powder and hemorrhoids and all
Man,
that.
they're gonna come
But
on,
it's
man.
boom howard. But it's but I think that's what kind of drives me, is that I still wake up every day with that little thing that goes, no way, this isn't real. Right. And I mean, hell, the pandemic, I mean, in March of last year, and people have heard me say this before, but I think it's, worth repeating, and it just shows the resiliency of this industry. Is the first time in my entire career where I turned to Anna and I went, well, I'm glad we've done well. We've got some assets, because we might be fucked.
Right.
And, and I really didn't. I mean, it's the first time in 25 years that I really didn't feel like I could see the chessboard, and I didn't know what was going to happen. Is this really going to be the apocalypse? Is something going to so fundamentally change in the economy or the way the world works that, we're just not going to be in demand anymore? And I mean, shockingly, it was the exact opposite. And for I think most people who had a footprint in the business already, most of us had, if not our best years, really good years in 2020, from a business standpoint. But it was frightening for a moment. If you told me last March, sign here and we'll give you 75% of your 2019 income and you just walk away right now, I'd have signed in a heartbeat, wouldn't have thought twice about it, and would have thought it was a good bet. It would have been a terrible decision. But it's so there are moments that come along that that you gotta wonder. And we're just so blessed to be in an industry that is it's resilient. Every time we get thrown a curveball or something weird happens or something in the business shifts or something changes, you just seem to keep going. And I mean, there are a lot of people out there worried about AI right now. I think, for me, having seen the way that this industry has fared over the last 25 years, through the advent of pay to play, through the advent of the internet and the home studio, and it's just another thing. It's gonna hurt some parts of the business. It's gonna hurt the really low end of the business. The only place I think with a higher end that it's got some risk might be video game work, because the people who cast and create video games, AI works in a way that their brain works. as opposed to people who cast commercial, or people who deal with e-learning, or who deal with industrial narration or promo or whatever it might be. Video game, the people actually coding the stuff, it makes sense to them. So that worries me a little bit. But outside of that, if you've got a footprint and you play professional voiceover, and you're not doing the real dollar a holler stuff, yeah, we're gonna be fine. And I
Don't
think
be a VO prostitute.
don't be a VO prostitute. That's a good hashtag. But I'm learning to trust it more. With if we can get through a pandemic and a stock market crash that's 40%, and and the industry is stronger than ever, okay.
So on that same kind of level, but more taking care of yourself personally, I think you'll definitely, I think we'll be on the same line here. Being in this industry, you give a lot to yourself through the things that you do every day. And I kind of explain it to people that you have a gas tank, and you give and you give and you give and you give, and sometimes you won't realize that you're almost at E.
Right.
And then once you hit that E, it is so hard to get yourself back and rolling again like you were before. So maybe what are some things that you help to, keep yourself at an even kill, or pull yourself back from it before, or help yourself realize before you get to E?
It's a great question. And, I have learned and evolved on that over the years. If you go back even 6 or 7 years, I was hardcore. I was pulling 100-hour weeks. I was just going after everything. I was, on all the time, and I was building a business, and I was growing what this has become over time. There came a point where I realized that I had to stop. I think the point was when I tried to bring my mobile rig on the honeymoon, and I almost had a really short marriage. But
Did you know J. Michael can talk out of his keister? That's right. It's all muffled sound.
But there came a point where I realized that I had to stop looking at the studio as a little ATM machine, and I had to stop thinking of it as a place that if I was away from it, I was losing money. And I had to remember that I'm working so I can enjoy life. I'm not, I'm just not just a robot that's up here to voice and to make cash. It's great when that happens, and I think that's a risk a lot of talent who start to experience success have. In that there comes that moment where it's almost addictive, okay, where it's like, oh my God, if I go sit in that room again for an hour, I'm going to make $1,000 or $5,000 or $500 or whatever, right? Yeah. Right. First hit's free. But it's being able to make that mental change that says, no, you're doing this so you can enjoy your life. And I think what I started, maybe I was in Europe for too long and I started getting too much of a European mentality, but the first step was saying, I don't work weekends. Okay, period. I don't work weekends. And I know there are people out there preaching a different philosophy. And I'll tell you what, if you're early in your career and you're starting to build a business, your ass better work on Saturday and Sunday. Okay, you better take the jobs that come in on Saturday and Sunday because you're in that building phase. But there comes a point where once you've got some flow going, okay, and you don't ever want to rest on your laurels, but once you've got some flow going, give yourself the chance to recover and to be human. And so for me, at first it was I don't work weekends. Then it was starting to outsource certain things like editing and some of the administrative functions that I do, and being able to take my hands off a lot of that stuff, which is hard because it's your product, right? And then it's gotten to now where what I've learned about myself is that I work really well in short, intense bursts. And so what I do now is I work primarily Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are what I call my whirlwind. And we're in it right now. We're coming to the end of it right now. But Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because of the time difference between here and then all my, everything I do is still in the States. I have some clients in Europe, but mostly it's still in the US. And so because of the time difference, I will get up at about 10 o'clock in the morning. My day will start in earnest at about 12 o'clock for work, and I will go to sleep at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And I will pull a solid 16 hours Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. But Monday and Friday, I save strictly for live client sessions, only doing major auditions on those days. I'm working maybe 4 to 6 hours each of those days. And I take a lot of 3-day weekends, take a lot of 4-day weekends, We take, a week every couple of months and go somewhere. I'm stopping to smell the roses. And, I've got a 5-year-old kid. I'm loving watching him grow up. And we're becoming this little family that's with 2 stupid dogs. That's just, it's a wonderful thing to be able to stop and say, okay, let's just enjoy life a little bit. And I'm privileged to be in a position it's a little easier for me to do that now, but I still have that whirlwind in the middle of the week. But that's how my brain works. If I get in and I go 3 days and I'm hardcore and I sleep 6 hours, 7 hours, and then I'm up and then I do it again 16 hours and I go back 3 days and then I'm pretty spent. Come Friday, I'm pretty spent. I'll do work, till 12, till 1, till 2, and then I'm usually done. And we go out and have a nice dinner somewhere, or we go off somewhere for the weekend, and then it's decompression time. And I try not to even look at my email over the weekends. I usually can't get away with that, but I try.
Sweet.
I'm gonna switch gears on you again because big man, big voice, but bigger than that is your heart, and it's pretty well known.
That's what the cardiologist said too.
Right? No, you got to open up the valves, you goofy bastard. Open up the valves. But it's well known, and for anybody not knowing this man gives a lot of himself, a lot of his time, a lot of his resources. So I just want to say thanks on behalf of the industry to have someone like you, as me having a champion who is Jen Henry, whoop, whoop, unicorn OG. But, me knowing that her kindness, I mean, it all kind of stemmed from you and her stories. And so just from me, a personal thank you, and from the industry, a huge thank you for what you do too, because you don't have to do any of that stuff. And I think we had talked once before, you can truly judge a man by the way he treats those who can do nothing for him. And if we're judging you on that, A++, buddy.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm just a big believer in, I forget who the first person who said that was, but, sending the elevator back down. And, there's a whole generation of talent out there that ought to experience the things that I've been blessed to experience. And, if I can help with that, I'm happy to.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for making everybody cry all the time.
Wait, I'm not Dave Walsh. What are you talking about?
There's a bunch of us out there. Bunch of us.
Appreciate that.
No, it's just important, and important to give back and champion somebody like when you have that opportunity. And it's just really cool that it's on all levels, especially with you. It's on all levels. So
well, you got there's I can't think of an industry in the world that is as close-knit in so many ways, that genuinely looks after each other and cares about each other. And I think the people who are in the voiceover business and who have been here for any period of time what makes it special is we come from a place of abundance, and not from a place of scarcity. And I think that is one of the real key difference makers in, compared to maybe on camera or music or whatever it might be, where there's just this cutthroat competition. We don't really look at it that way, because we know that, as much as there's this mythology of the business being oversaturated with talent, well, it's oversaturated with people calling themselves talent. But the truth of the matter is there are only so many people really booking the work, right? And I think most people who are in the business know that if you're decent at this, and if you know the tech side, if you are able to present a decent product, that you're not going to go hungry. You may not get rich, but but there's more work out there than there really is quality talent to do it. And I think that it allows us to come from a place of abundance where we want to help each other. And couldn't and the other thing is there's just not a lot of jerks in voiceover. And when they're there, they get found out pretty quickly, I think. But it's a community that just really reinforces and supports each other, and with the occasional exception on social media, but for the most part. And it's just something I'm really proud to be a part of.
We tend to kill snakes in the garden around here. Oh, if you're bringing that trash, you best go to the exit door. Thank you very much. Bless your heart. And you can look that up in Southern. That doesn't mean what I just said.
That's
either.
Right. That's why I know I speak Southern. I got you.
I speak Southern.
All of y'all and them. Get on out of here.
I may have mentioned chicken fried steaks earlier. So,
right. Waffle House.
No, I will caution you. Chicken fried lobster, not so much.
Not so much.
Not so great.
No, not so much.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Why?
believe it or not, I've never been a real big lobster fan. I know that's probably hard for you to hear, but
All right. Well, this interview's over. See you guys.
you're right. I was
Right.
gonna say this is
The
it.
hell with your blasphemy, you son of a bitch!
You've done it now, son. You've
Infidel.
done it now. Terrible. I know it's terrible.
Well, welcome to VO in Stereo. It's just Jared now. Steven- oh,
Finally kicked
man,
in.
I wish this could go on forever. Steven, you got any more questions you want to get in there?
Yeah, I wanted to know kind of how. I mean, I know you've got your J. Michael Collins. You know, your coaching, your demo. How did you kind of get that going? Because I find that fascinating.
Yeah, and it's funny. It wasn't some grand strategy. It was about 10 years ago. I think I had the first person say, "Hey, will you teach me how to do what you do?" And I'm like, I don't know how that works. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I used to think coaching was a scam, just straight up scam.
Interesting.
Because I kind of self-taught myself this, right? I mean, this is bullshit. People are paying money for this. Come on. You know, I used to be of that mind. You either have it or you don't, right? So I took a couple of people on. I'm not even sure I charged them at the beginning. If I did, it was the first few people, it was like $75 an hour or something. Was just trying to give them the information that I thought was valuable, helping them with their reads and, you know, spending a little time on it. And then they started booking. And then they're all of a sudden they're booking jobs I'm auditioning for. Like, okay, all right, maybe there's something to this. You know, and so it became just a shingle that went on my website. You know, is anybody interested? Next thing I know, there were a lot of people who were interested, and over time, it just started to turn into, not are they booking, but now that this person has a career. Okay, you know, and it's gotten to the point now where I have people I've coached who are coaching, and who are good coaches, you know, and it's like I feel like an old football coach who's got that tree, you know, like Mike Holmgren, who's got the 5 people that, you know, are now head coaches in the NFL, which is pretty cool. But it really wasn't intentional, and I will say there came a point where I had to really throttle it down a bit, because there was a fair amount of demand, and what people don't realize is that there are a number of us for whom coaching is not a moneymaker, no matter how much we charge, where we can make more money spending an hour on the microphone than we can coaching somebody. And so, you know, there's a reason that right now I really, if somebody's doing a longer program of coaching with me, I really only keep like 5 of them on at a time. I'll do little one-offs with people here and there, but for the most part, if you're doing a longer program with me, I'm only doing 5 of those at any given time, because I've got to do voiceover work, right? And that's more lucrative. But the demo stuff also was kind of sort of accidental in that sort of was the genesis of that was kind of having spots that I would record, and having this eager Christmas-like anticipation of getting them back and putting them on my reel, which at one time was just actual work, right? And getting them back and going, the hell did they do to the audio? And having that happen so many times on some big signature national campaigns where I'm like, I don't want to put that on my reel. You know, it's like, we can do this better ourselves. You know, and it again, it was the same kind of thing. It became a thing at the beginning where it was just me doing all the work, doing the writing, doing the production, doing everything else. And then as demand grew, I started to bring in, you know, guys like AJ and my team of engineers who now work for me. And it's become this thing. You know, and I mean, Chuck Duran was I think probably the first person who turned demo production into an art form. And I think that, you know, over the years, it's evolved to where there are now, you know, 8 or 10 of us who I think are doing just fantastic work out there and are really helping grow people's careers with demos that can go out and get them top agents and can get them clients and can actually get them, you know, the kind of attention that they're looking for. And over time, that has become a business. But at the beginning, it was more of a, well, we can do better than the actual people putting this on the air. They compress the hell out of it, whatever else. Like, no.
It's kind of a byproduct, though. I mean, kind of a automatic byproduct of what you were already doing.
Yeah. It was a natural evolution.
Yeah, for sure. I can see that.
In that case, I'm the missing link.
I'd buy that.
Did you say evolution? You know the difference between a redneck and a hillbilly?
What's that?
Elevation.
Boom.
He's here all week, folks. Tip your waiters.
No, I'm not. I'm out of here.
Where's the hook?
Right? Well, it's like the most difficult part of the whole interview is like, where can we find J. Michael Collins other than every damn where?
I'm not Waldo, am I?
Oh, that would be so sweet if you went to another conference dressed up as Waldo.
I was thinking about
funny,
a
though.
lobster onesie for OneVoice with a cowboy hat. You know,
That's a good look. I like that.
That'd be
pull it
excellent.
off. Come out in a suit. You know, take the shell off. Right.
Yeah, that's
No, if you want to for whatever godforsaken unaccountable reason, contact me and get in touch about something. If you want to check out demos, jmcdemos.com. And if you want to talk about anything else, email is always my favorite method of communication. So jmichael@jmcvoiceover.com.
it'll all be popping up down here.
We popping
Appreciate
it
the
up
pops.
here and there and
Popping
everywhere.
and popping and fresh. I don't know if you've ever watched any of our shows, but
I watched a couple of them. Yeah.
you're brought up in pretty much every one of them, so it's pretty funny.
Well, you know, that's why I watch.
I want to see if they mention my name.
Plug me, plug me.
I'm watching you.
In a good way. Oh my Lord.
Fantastic.
I mean, that's kind of, unless you got any questions for us, I don't know what I could possibly answer for you.
Well, how's the whole Rogaine thing working out?
Oh God.
I
Great.
screwed up and put it on my back scratcher. It's
Hey.
working out as expected.
Speaking
I
of
lay
messing
on my
with
belly and
Sasquatch.
people are like, "Oh, look, a bear rug."
It's time to
Only
tee
problem
off.
is I can't flip up and be with my wife and be on my back at the same time. So the whole by the fireplace thing is shot.
There you go. Well, guys, it's been a real pleasure, man. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
You guys rock.
It's like just hanging out for a little while,
Yeah. Yeah, except broadcast to the world. So
right? Everyone.
That's-
Well, guys, that does it for another episode of VO in Stereo. Thank you so much, J. Michael. Always with me, Mr. Coghill, and whoever the hell I am. We'll see you next time. Bye.
bye everybody.
Yeah, bye.